Wondering how your mindset affects your life? How to bring more energy into your business and life? Millions of people around the world ask these same questions daily. You are in the right place. Learn practices that will help give your life the meaning and success you've been searching for. Welcome to the Charge Podcast, teaching you how to create habits around real goals every day. Practical life advice from those who made it. Here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
I am super excited. I'm going to launch my book this month in the month of October. Can I ask you a favor as the listener of the Charge Podcast? My new book, Cultivate Positive Culture, 10 Actions to Faithful Living, is coming out in mid-October. My goal is to launch this book as a bestseller, and I need your help. Would you be interested in being on my book launch team? All you have to do is go to bit.ly/CPC launch team. Case sensitive, so better go to chargepodcast.com and you'll find the link at the top of our page. Register your name and email, and we will send you all the details about our upcoming book launch. We will also be giving all launch team members special freebies that no one else will get. Since you're helping me, I want to help you. Thanks for helping out. Are you frustrated and stressed out with your professional and personal life? The Charge Podcast will help you get recharged. Yes, we are in the last quarter of 2020. To start out the fourth quarter guest list, we found some interesting people who will share their journey to finding charge each day in business and life. Make sure to listen in each week and see how you can apply the lessons they share with us as chargers in your own life. The goal of the Charge Podcast is to help you realize what is most important in your life. Chargers are committed to finding how each day they can make their life better and the willingness to learn, grow, and become the person they were meant to be. I think this quote I coined in my new book, Cultivate Positive Culture, sums it up. Give yourself permission to charge each day to become the person you were meant to be. You made a great choice in listening to this podcast. Remember, the podcast is named Charge after my mantra. Create habits around real goals every day. Let's get recharged in this podcast to influence a positive culture in your life each day. Are you ready? Chargers, welcome back for another great Charge podcast. And I love bringing you guests that have different viewpoints. And this week, I'm bringing a guest that, to be quite honest, has kind of helped me in one of my goals this year of learning about nutrition. And we'll get into what that is. But Thom King is part CEO, part personal development wonk, and part biohacker info geek. Thom King is a self-confessed serial entrepreneur. While his favorite book list contains many success-oriented and personal development classics, the traditional definition of achieving success, e.g. making lots of money, is not what inspires or motivates King. He follows a more of "you aren't doing well unless you're also doing some good" line of thinking. King's company has been built around the simple principle of do the right thing. In 1999, Thom's personal passion for food and his concern over the explosion of metabolic disease led him to found Steviva Brands, known as Icon Foods, with a mission to help food manufacturers replace unhealthy sugars in their products with natural options. With 20 years of R&D work, Thom has helped hundreds of manufacturers improve the quality of their products. In recent years, his passion for food and optimal health have intersected with his embrace the ketogenic, low-carb, high-fat diet. Thom, it is great to have you on the Charge Podcast. Welcome.
Gary, thank you so much. I'm super charged to be here.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about entrepreneurship and business, but also we're going to get a little bit in, if you don't mind, kind of what you found about foods and sugars, because I think there's a hidden thing that some of our manufacturers are doing to us and to our children that we definitely need to discuss. But before we do, let me ask you that mantra of mine, a charge: create habits around real goals every day. What do you think is a habit or habits that's led to success in your life?
Journaling. And that is the thing that is such a stabilizing factor for me. Every morning that I get up, I don't miss journaling. I mean, it's just hard, bright lines. And So when I go into my journaling process, I really focus on the things that I want to manifest in my life. And I go into some really great detail. I think that I think in some ways it almost feels like an affirmation, so you want to think about it in the present tense. Like, you don't want to say, I'm going to do it. All right. You want to talk about, I've done it, and I've done it by this day. So, I every single day revisit these goals, and I would say that they're more intentions than anything else, because I kind of have a system of setting an intention, describing the outcome that I'm looking for, creating a quantifiable action plan, and detailed action plan, and then executing on that action plan exactly how it's laid out. And then you release your expectations, because a lot of people like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million. And then they fall short and they're like, oh, what did I do wrong? So you release your expectations, and then every day you revisit the results, and you collect data, and you can tweak your action plan to bring you closer to what you would find to be a desired outcome.
Yeah, I think that's key. And you're really, like you said, you're setting the intention by writing and by putting it down on paper and giving yourself, where are you going, and putting that process together. What a great kind of habit to really think about. And that's what I really want people, chargers, to think about. That's what I call my audience, is what will help them. And the best way we learn is from others. As you, in your bio, you've learned a lot from personal development, from other classics, and from individuals out there. But then it's about putting what works for you into your life each and every day. And business is kind of like that too. To be an entrepreneur, you have to take risks. You have to take challenges there. And I guess I would be curious to ask, what do you think some of those common mistakes in starting a business is for people when they're getting started?
Well, I would say the biggest mistake is not having a plan. Like, you just have an intention and you haven't written it down. And so that's all that remains, is a good intention. And if you don't have a concise action plan, it's like sailing a ship without any navigation whatsoever. I mean, you might end up somewhere by luck, but more than likely you're going to end up on the rocks. So I would say that, and look, I'm not perfect, okay? Because I've done plenty of things and plenty of businesses. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I've done plenty of things and have done them like, hey, I could make a ton of money doing this, but never set out a plan and never created the why behind it. Like, why do I want to do this? Because there has to be a bigger why than just making money.
Yeah, and that becomes a real key, because if you don't have that clarity of where you're going, it's kind of hard to get there. It's just a lot harder to be able to make it and move forward. What really thrills you, or what do you get excited about being in the business and love most about business?
The thing that I love most is empowering people. So, I mean, part of being a business owner, entrepreneur, or CEO is that you have the opportunity. I mean, I like to look at things a little bit differently, I think, than most CEOs. Like, most CEOs believe that all of the employees work for them. I don't believe that for 1 second. I believe as a CEO, I work for my employees. And I provide a service to my employees. And once I stop providing that service, then they can show me the front door. But I would say the most empowering thing, and the thing that gives me the most joy, an entrepreneur and a business owner, is seeing a person come to me, being the catalyst for that person's growth, and seeing, like, after a first year, you see this person grow and develop into a person that they really respect, and that trend continues on. So I would say, absolutely, without question, setting money aside, everything else, those things are very secondary into just providing good leadership and watching people just ignite.
Yeah. And it's kind of fun really seeing as they kind of catch it and they really understand where they come into their zone. And even if you've been a small part of that, to be able to help develop that, there's some real personal satisfaction there. I've had some of those same things when I was a business owner. We did a lot of training with our team and a lot of coaching. And later on, when you'd see them really catch on, that personal satisfaction, it's more than just about making money. It's about really making people and helping them get to their potential that they're able to do each and every day. What allows you to stay motivated? through the process? And then what do you think helps your team stay motivated as they're working through it?
Well, what helps me stay motivated, because I am first and foremost an entrepreneur. So I live in a world of creativity. Like if I'm not creating or innovating, I feel like, I'm starting to die. So, for me, I need to continually create and innovate. And I would say to keep, my employees, keep their satisfaction level and keep them burning, having a collaborative environment where they're involved in a lot of the decisions that are made at the company, where their voice is actually heard, that really makes them part of something bigger than themselves and really empowers them.
Yeah. And especially when you do that collaborative environment, you really get the engagement, but also you increase everyone's performance. I talk a lot about positive culture in the workplace, and the thing that really all the research that I've done, it just shows that the more you are collaborative of sharing with them what the challenges are, as well as the opportunities, the more engagement you get, the higher performance you get out of your team. And I came up with a little bit of philosophy is, if it's really about the people and their performance increases, profits increase. But if you don't take care of your people, their performance is lower. What's happened to your profits? They're going to be lower. And I think that becomes a real key that people really realizing it's about the team. They can help you in that collaborative environment to really achieve the success that you're looking for as an organization.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and then, when they feel like they're part of the process, part of the collaboration process, that's when they take ownership. And, if you have employees that have taken ownership of your company and ownership of their responsibilities in the company, they burn. And it's interesting because I'll leave the office late and there will still be people working. And I'm like, hey, you guys could have left a couple hours ago. And they're like, no, I just got this other thing that I just got to get this thing wrapped up. And it's interesting because I have to tell my employees to go home because it's like, you need a work-life balance and just, this will be here for you tomorrow. So that's when you see people that are taking ownership like that and they're inspired like that, it's hugely rewarding.
Normally as entrepreneurs, we always have a role model or someone that really has been that inspiration in our business. Do you have that individual for you?
I do. Dr. Edwards Deming. So Dr. Edwards Deming, I would say could have been single-handedly responsible for the rebuilding of Japan after World War II. So in World War II, after the bombing and just the devastation, there was no power, there was no utilities. They were bombed into the Stone Age, and so President Roosevelt hired Dr. Edwards Deming to actually go to Japan and help rebuild their economy. And, he helped before, one thing that's interesting is like when I talk to my grandparents, about, back in the day when they were in their 20s and 30s, they thought Japanese products were low quality, and now when you look at Japanese products, you're like, whoa, wait, this is amazing quality. And sometimes, and often I would say it surpasses American quality. And that is a direct function of Dr. Edwards Deming, because his philosophy was quality always costs less. And if you can just embed that into your brain and just like, hey, if you buy something cheap and it breaks, just pay more for what you're getting and have something that's quality. And if you're producing something, don't take shortcuts. Don't put, ingredients in that aren't the best ingredients you can find, because in the end, it's going to end up costing you more money than what you're going to make. So quality always costs less.
Yeah. What a great philosophy, and really in business for all of us to realize, and that kind of that same part of it is service, your quality. But then if you have the quality service that goes with that, people will pay for that. There's a reason. I don't know if you remember the name, but the Yugo cars that was out at one point in time, there was no quality there. and you don't hear of the Yugo anymore. So that becomes those key. We're both dating ourselves here a little bit, talking about Yugo cars.
We are.
And every other listener that understands the Yugo car, they're in our category. So thank you very much for joining us. For some of you are saying, what was those? So look it up on the internet. That's what I would tell you. So that's great. So when you look at, can you kind of pinpoint catalysts where you've seen that your exponential growth points really took off in your business?
That's a good question. Yeah, I haven't been asked that one. It's making me think for a minute. A catalyst, I would say the catalyst that really, made our business take off. I'd say that there were several catalysts, but all of it was surrounding sticking to our plan, right? So we were one of the first people to import stevia into the United States. And we had a patented process of being able to extract the sweet constituents out of the leaves. The problem was that the FDA did not allow it as a sweetener in food. So we had to actually sell it as a dietary supplement, and we weren't doing very well. And in 2008, one of our competitors petitioned the FDA with a lot of money to be able to approve stevia as an ingredient. And so we basically rode their long tail. And that really was sort of the beginning of our success when stevia was allowed as a sweetener, because then we were able to take the various blends that we had been working on and bring those to, our sports nutrition companies and offer them way to have clean label sugar reduction in their supplements and their shakes and bars and cookies and stuff like that. The people, wanted less sugar. And so that was like this huge quantum leap for us.
Yeah. And probably one of the points that really seen the difference of where the growth took. I'm kind of curious. Let's share with them, because you was fortunate, sent me your book, Guy Gone Keto, to me, and I've been reading it. I've not finished it completely, but there's some great information in there. And I think let's go back. I'm going to go to the very basics. Why is all that sugar so bad for us? And do you think our society realizes how much sugar we're putting in our bodies and all the products we're buying?
No, I don't think people realize how much sugar they're consuming, because it's a lot. And the way that you know how much sugar that you're consuming is by doing a little bit of label reading. So when you pick up a bottle of ketchup, at your grocery store, if you look on the back of it, you're going to see that the number one ingredient is either high fructose corn syrup or sugar. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me, well, hey, the food companies are doing this to get us addicted to their products. And my answer to that is absolutely not. No, they are not doing that. They don't, food companies don't look to get people addicted to their products. That's just the secondary effect of having a lot of sugar in it. The reason that there's so much sugar in our food is because sugar is so cheap. Sugar is a subsidized industry. So they get government money, which means that the sugar industry can sell sugar for less than what it costs them, because then they're getting money back from the government for that. And so let's just say ketchup, right? So let's just say you went to a company that was selling ketchup and said, hey, I have an ingredient that I can give you that you could add to your ketchup. It's going to cost you 15 cents a pound. And tomatoes are already costing you $2 a pound. So all you're gonna have to do is lessen the tomatoes, add sugar, add salt, add vinegar. Your product is gonna taste almost the same, just a little sweeter. And that's gonna appeal to the American palate. So now you've basically taken something that cost you $2.50 in your cost of goods sold, and you've knocked it down under $1 just by adding so much sugar to it, because it's a subsidized industry. So I would say, read the label, look for added sugars, be willing to pay a little bit more for the food that you're eating to avoid sugar. And then the other part of your question was, well, why is sugar so bad for us, right? And if you read my book, you're going to see that I was a hypocrite because I was a sugar addict. I was the worst sugar addict I think that I've ever known. Like, I would take a can of Pepsi, drink a little bit out, and dump a bag of M&Ms in it because it wasn't sweet enough for me. So I did this for a long time, and it put me into this metabolic state. So the reason that sugar is so bad for you is that you're unable to metabolize all of it, right? And what happens is your body, in order to counteract the amount of sugar that you just took in, it has to produce insulin, right? And so you produce insulin to counteract all the sugar that you put in. But if you keep putting in sugar, right, what happens is your body's not able to produce enough insulin, and your body becomes what's called insulin resistant. Okay. And when you become insulin resistant, it means that you're no longer really able to functionally metabolize that sugar safely. So what happens? It moves into what's called triglycerides and blood lipids. And triglycerides are fats, blood lipids are fats, and it gathers right around your middle. So when you see this person, skinny legs, skinny arms, and this big, huge belly, that is a sign of metabolic disease. And that is self-inflicted. It's by eating too many high glycemic carbohydrates and definitely too much sugar. And that is why I'd say stay away from sugar. But there's so many other things that sugar can do, like neurodegenerative disease. It feeds cancer. It's like, just limit your sugar.
Yeah, becomes a really key case then we have to understand in the United States. And like I told you at the beginning of this year, I kind of told myself I wanted to learn more about nutrition. I myself, a very similar journey that you went on, Tom, in 2002, 2003, I lost 75 pounds.
Wow.
And I've been able to maintain that up to today. And I do some fluctuations, but I've kind of got a number that I need to be at. And this year I even took it down even lower than what I was before, because I just saw that I was kind of creeping up to that. But I really didn't understand the nutrition side. I've been able to do it through exercise and changing my eating habits. And I'm trying to really learn about reading labels and understanding that. And that's one thing I really have enjoyed about your book. You really explain that well in the book of those challenges that people have. And if you don't mind, I think it's a good time, because since we're talking about it now, can you share a little bit what keto has done for you and, kind of your philosophy behind it?
Yeah, so my ketogenic journey started for me in Las Vegas. Oddly enough, I was at dinner with one of our suppliers, and they were paying, which meant I can eat as much as I want because I'm not paying. And so I had steak and I had cake and we had wine and baked potatoes. And by the time I was done, I was so full that I felt a little sick. And what's interesting is that when I look back on it, my eating habits, that was what I used to do. Like I would eat so much until I was just like, oh my God, I can't eat another bite. And it's like, that's your point of satiation that you never want to even get to. So I finished up dinner, waddled back to my room, looked in the mirror, and it's just like, I was in Vegas. I was at the Luxor, and the room just reeked of like old alcohol and broken dreams and regret. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And I look in the mirror, and it's like, I'm carrying 35 pounds of extra weight. It's not a ton of weight. I'm 6'2", so I can cover it well. But it was my blood pressure. Like my blood pressure was 199 over 99. And the doctors are like, we're amazed that you're just walking around and not having a stroke. And I'm like, well, I guess me too. And, also I just would have an afternoon crash. Like at about 2:00, if I wasn't hitting the coffee, I was hitting the sofa, because it was like, I just can't function. And so, after that episode in Vegas, I just looked at myself in the mirror, and it's like, you know what? You're an imposter. You're working with people that are in the keto industry. You're working with people in low carb. You're working with all these healthy sports nutrition companies, and you're anything but healthy. And that's when I think that's when the pain of my behavior actually exceeded any pleasure that I was getting from it. Yeah. And then I started writing it down. I just started writing down like, okay, what is it going to take to create a different lifestyle, one that's healthier and, one that really, promotes longevity. It's going to help me live to 100 years old. And that's when I really started diving into keto. And it's like, keto is super interesting because what it does is it forces your body to flip a switch, and it starts metabolizing fats as energy instead of sugars, because you've deprived your body of sugars. And what's amazing is your liver is unbelievable just amazing organ that is able to metabolize stuff. Like it takes fructose and metabolizes it to fat. It's what it does. It also takes fat and metabolizes it into ketones. And ketones, your brain can function on ketones. In fact, your brain functions more effectively on ketones. You have more energy, you have more awareness. It's like drinking a couple cups of coffee without the jitters. So, in a nutshell, for people who are like, oh, what is this keto he talks about? Let me tell you, it's pretty simple. 70% fat, 20% protein, 10% carbs. And you're not getting your carbs from pasta, rice, bread. You're getting your carbs from things that grow in the ground, preferably things that grow above the ground. If it's a potato, stay away from it. High glycemic, too much sugar. But if it's lettuce, if it's cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, it's like those are big parts of your diet. But eat avocados, eat whole eggs, eat bacon, eat things that have a lot of fat. And what you're going to find is that fat is your friend, and fat can actually make you thinner. Sugar is what makes you fat.
Yeah. And that's talk about a total dynamic for most people. That's just a total dynamic that's got to change. And like I said, we'll have this in the Charge podcast notes, but you need to check out his book, Guy Gone Keto, because I think you'll find, and he even has some recipes in there. I just think it's been a real resource. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, because normally, when I get done with a podcast, I send my guest a gift, and Thom sent me one before he joined the podcast. So I was really excited, and I said, I've got to read it. And like I said, I haven't finished it completely, but I'm real close to it. So I thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so important. I want it to go that way because I know people are struggled, and I know they have that struggle. I know what a struggle it is myself. We've all experienced it. And even people that you see that are fit, they've had some sort of challenge in their life at some time with that. Everyone says, there's very few people that just has that great metabolism that everything works out perfectly and they never have to worry about it. Thom, when you look at your business and your life, what do you think's the biggest risk you've ever taken?
Oh, that's pretty easy. Well, we're primarily a sweetener company. So we supply sweeteners to sports nutrition companies and really any companies that are looking to reduce sugar. But part of the innovation process is we wanted to get into a category that there wasn't really options for people that didn't want, sugars. And what that category was inclusions. Like inclusions when you have ice cream and it's like, oh, there's chocolate chips and there's little pieces of fruit and there's this. Those are inclusions. And so my first step into inclusions was when we had chocolate chips manufactured for us. And I wasn't 100% sure that we were going to be able to sell them. And I had to commit to 200,000 pounds of chocolate chips, which is almost $1 million. But I had a hunch. And so I went and put in the order for them and crossed our fingers. And I'm like, this could either be the dumbest thing I've ever done or one of the smartest things I've ever done. And we actually had those chocolate chips. I projected we'd have them sold out in a year. But actually what happened is we had them sold out in 19 days. And I was like, okay, so now I'm on to something. Now I think that I'm going in the right direction. So then that's when we added white chocolate chips, toasted marshmallow chocolate chips. We added sprinkles. And so we're really leaning into inclusions because, when you look at all of these amazing, frozen desserts that are coming out, the inclusions are where all the sugar is. And so if we can remove the sugars and if we can actually put inclusions that are just as delicious as the ones with sugar, then people can eat ice cream guilt-free.
Man, I like that idea because I like my ice cream. Me too. I like my ice cream. I'm one of those guys when I go on vacation, I think you have to have ice cream every day. And I can have it every day anyway, but I don't because I know that I can't. But that's so interesting. Well, Thom, this has been a great conversation as we're kind of wrapping up to get to the recharge round. I kind of want to leave with this thought of, when you look at your company and your business, what do you see in that future looking out the next 5 to 10 years? Because definitely the market is changing and is moving.
Yeah, we're looking at continual innovation. So we're developing things, like inclusions, sauces, things like this that food manufacturers can use. So over the next 4 or 5 years, we're going to continue with innovation and discovering new products and see what sticks.
Yeah. Well, you have a product that our society needs, not only just because for the health side of it, but also really for the mental side of it. Our businesses need that, because I don't think people realize enough when they go to the buffet at lunchtime, how that affects them all afternoon when they're trying to do their work and they're not a very good performer in that area. And it really stifles that creativity and that innovation in companies.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely can. I mean, the one thing that I noticed about cutting out sugar and focusing more on like a ketogenic lifestyle is brain function. Like it just really cleared everything up. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, it was amazing. I know when I went through mine, just like what you're saying, it was like a total difference. I had my clarity was so much better, my brain power, and actually my company improved and it grew. And before I was stressed and, I was carrying that stress to myself, but I was also carrying it to my whole team. And of course, then it became a stressful environment that they worked in instead of that engagement part that we talked about earlier. Thom, let's talk about the recharge round. I got 6 questions that I like to ask, kind of rapid fire.
Yeah,
and
let's do it.
See what you think about them. How about this first one? We talked a little bit about it, but how do you believe your mindset affects your daily living?
It affects it 100%. That's why, the first thing that I do is journal, because that is what I would say that's the palette for creating my masterpiece of a day.
Great. We talked a little bit about this and we talked about how it creates energy, but I'm curious to ask you, instead of asking what brings energy to you, when you are low on energy, what do you do to kind of recharge your battery?
I breathe. And so I find that there's a lot of energy in breath. People that do yoga use the breath. And so I just use breath of fire and it just recharges me.
Yeah. That time, that space, that's what we're talking about, giving yourself. Can you really see your breath moving? Do you feel your stomach moving? Those type of things, that really mindfulness that allows you to do that. Great one. How about the number one relationship or connection that's made the biggest impact on your life?
The relationship with my mom, because I was such a lazy teenager. I mean, I think back and it's like, so lazy. And there was an opportunity one time I worked all summer for this guy and didn't have tuition and I was just screwed. I had no place to live. And my mom just said, "Hey, why don't you start your own business? You know the customers. The sky's the limit for you." And so that was the name of my first business, was STL Services, Sky's the Limit. And so, yeah, every single day when I journal about the things that I'm grateful for what she did for me, because it put me on a trajectory of success. So I owe her everything.
Yeah. Well, and she set that mindset of what you can accomplish. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing. Sure. What advice has influenced you the most in your life?
I would say that the best piece of advice that I ever got was about, you are the sum of the 5 people closest to you. And so always choose carefully the people that you allow in your inner circle, because if you find that they can't move ahead with you, that they're just going to hold you down. So be careful of who you surround yourself with.
Yeah, I agree. How about you share a book that you like or you would recommend to others?
The Daily Stoic. The Daily Stoic is something, I read daily. Ryan Holiday is the author on it. And what's interesting to me is I really got into Stoicism about 5 years ago. And it's really helped sort of stabilize my life, because, usually life is full of ups and downs, really highs, really lows and stuff like that. And Stoicism has really helped me sort of level that all out. So I highly recommend the Daily Stoic.
Great. And how about, last question, you almost made it through, is what legacy do you want to leave the world?
Well, that's something that I write down every day. And the legacy that I would like to leave the world with is growth, loving kindness, contribution, And that's the type of companies and that's the type of philosophy that I would like to be remembered for.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot of things to think about here to allow us to grow. And I think they can tell from your voice of that you are the person you are, that growth and kindness comes across very much. And you've definitely contributed to allow them to think a little bit deeper for themselves. And that's the whole key of my podcast, really, about the Chargers, is I want them to create the life they want. You know, we're all on a journey in this world. What do you want that to be for yourself? And what do you need to do to really make that difference each and every day? Thom, would you share with them how they could reach out to you if they're interested in connecting with you, and your websites and any information you'd like to share?
Sure. If you go to Icon Foods, you can see that's where the mad science goes on. So you can find me there. On LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a great place to connect with me. And then my side hustle is the Guy Gone Keto and the Guy Gone Keto line of condiments and products. So if you hit me up on any of the socials at Guy Gone Keto, you can find me there. I'm pretty responsive. And that's pretty much it. If you seek me out, you'll find me.
Okay, super. Well, we will let our Chargers do that and find out more about you, and definitely check out the book, Guy Gone Keto. We'll have all that information in show notes. So if you are exercising right now or driving or cutting grass, whatever it is, you have that opportunity to be able to check that out. So Thom, I thank you so much for joining us on the Charge Podcast. Some great conversation.
No, thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. They're awesome questions. And I think what you do is very important. So stick with it and grow, keep growing.
Thank you, sir. Chargers, I hope you got something out of this. What do you want to do to move forward in your life? That becomes the key. Remember, it's great listening to the material, but it's even better when you take action on it. So create your habits around real goals each day and move forward. That's how you become a charged, and then you become a charger as you're moving through the process. Come back next week and we'll have another great guest for you. Make it a great day. Chargers, we have our first sponsor for the Charge Podcast. We welcome Pulse Hit to the show and want you to check out their services. Most companies don't have time for a wellness program. Pulse Hit is your mobile turnkey wellness solution to guide your employees to a healthier lifestyle. Support your team in achieving their full potential so you can go back to running your business. Check them out at pulsehit.com. That's PULSEHIIT.com. It will also be on the chargepodcast.com show notes.
This podcast is ended, but your life doesn't just stop. To continue your inspiring journey, head over to chargepodcast.com and access all the tools and resources mentioned on today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing with somebody who may also benefit from the advice provided. That's chargepodcast.com. Until next time, charge in business and life.